Your Town Matters is funded by the Government of Canada through the Local Journalism Initiative and supported by Cactus Media, Canada's independent community television association.
I'm Vicki Hogarth and welcome to NB Votes on CHCO, a chance to get to know your candidates before the municipal election on November 28th. On this particular show, we will meet the council candidates for Eastern Charlotte. In keeping with election guidelines, each candidate was given the same questions and up to 10 minutes of interview time. How the candidates chose to use their time was up to them. The candidates were sent the questions and the rules prior to the interview and were given separate interview times. Starting in alphabetical order with the candidates for Councillor at Large, here's my interview with Brenda Allison. Brenda, tell us about yourself. What is your backstory?
Okay, thank you for inviting me here today to tell everybody a little bit about myself. My name is Brenda Allison. I've been on council since 2018. I went in on a by-election and then last year got re-elected. I'm originally from St. John. I have 3 daughters and they're all grown up. 2 live in Australia, 1 lives in St. John. When I was a stay-at-home mom for many, many years with the girls so they could grow up and have mom at home all the time, and I was very lucky to be able to do that. I started back to work in 2000 and we bought a camp at McDougall Lake, and that's what brought us down to this area. So once we came to McDougall, we were in St. George a lot. We had friends in St. George and that, and we'd leave our ATV at their houses and that. And we were just driving through one day and we both looked at each other, my late husband and I, and we said, we'd love to live here. And we moved here in 2009, and I would never go back. It was the best move that we made. And so when we moved here, I worked at Utopia Convenience in Utopia. I've worked at Granite Town Farms in St. George. And I'm also a funeral director's assistant for the St. George Funeral Home, and I'm still presently there part-time. And I'm also at the Charlotte County Multicultural Center. So that's a little bit about how I came to St. George. I've been involved in many positions at the St. George Curling Club. I'm now the president of the St. George Curling Club. I am on the board of directors for the St. Georgian Area Food Bank. I also am a volunteer for Dial-A-Ride, and I'm on the board of Dial-A-Ride. And I'm also what else have I left out about myself? That's I would say that I've done a lot of volunteer work with curling under the U18 and under 21, so it's been an experience in the town.
And since you've been on council up till now, why are you reoffering and running for council this time around?
I feel there's still a lot more that I can offer. I feel that with the new Eastern Charlotte, a lot of the communities now are going to be able to work together. We're all going to become a team. I'm a person that believes there's not an I in team, it's a we. We're all going to work together, we're going to be strong. It's going to be challenging for the first couple of years because there's a lot of unknowns that we know what's going to take place with Eastern Charlotte. So I feel that there's still a lot that I can offer and give to the community.
In your opinion, what are some of the most important issues facing Eastern Charlotte right now?
The most important issues are housing. We have a lot of housing issues, just not in St. George, just not in Eastern Charlotte. It's the whole province. I feel that there's a lot of land that is Crown land that we could maybe talk to the province and take back and use for housing. There's policing. You know, we need to review the contracts with the RCMP see what we can do, maybe even to start up our own police force again. There's daycare in St. George. There, in Eastern Charlotte, period. We have no really licensed daycare in Eastern Charlotte. We need to start getting those into the area so we can grow more. And I believe that if you don't have housing, you don't have infrastructure, you don't have daycare, you're not going to have the areas to bring the people in. So that is one of the, well, more of the main issues that I feel that we should really work on.
If you are, and in your case, re-elected, what are some of the steps you would take to make the community a better place and to be a voice for Eastern Charlotte?
I would get the community more involved. Let the community have an open house that the residents can come and give their ideas. Because you go out and you hear people say, oh, I wish you would do this, oh, I wish you would do that. Bring it forward to us. As a council, we will try to work together, which we should, to get those opinions out there and get the opportunity so that it would work for the community. If your community is what you're working for, they're the people that voted you in, they're the people that you have to represent. And I feel that we really need that. We have a lot of seniors and youth that need things brought into the area, and we have disability issues for seniors and youth that we have to really work on. So to get the community more involved and hear what they really want from us, that's what we have to do. We have to listen to do for the community.
What are some of the skills that you possess and qualities that you think make you an effective counselor?
I listen to the people. And I try to help the people as much as I can. I'm a people person. I love to help people. If I can help them, I will. The skills I have is being on council for the last 4 years, seeing how the process works, seeing you can't promise people you're going to do something because there's a process you have to follow. And it happened to me. When I first came on council, I was going around and I was speaking to a couple of residents, and I said, I'll get on that right away for you. I'll do that. I had to go back to those residents and explain I couldn't do it right away. It's a process we have to follow. And not knowing those processes, then you can't do it. So it's good to have a little knowledge, but then it's good to know that the residents understand, because you're going back and you're saying to them, I tried. Like, I'm really trying, just give me some time. And that's what it is. It's the learning and the listening.
Final question is
Okay.
the fun one. If you had $1 million grant to use any way you wanted in the community, what would you do with it and why?
I would ask for an open house again, get some opinions of what some of the residents might like to see happen in the area. What could we use that $1 million for? We have a lot, like I said, we have a lot of seniors, a lot of youth. That might go towards help building something for them that the seniors and the youth both could use together, and make it so that we have proper access for disability people to get in and out of our facilities. So I would have an open house and have the residents give their opinion of where they would like to see it, because it's their money too. It's not my money, it's the Eastern Charlotte money.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come in today, Brenda.
Well, thank you very much, and I would just like to wish all the candidates that are running good luck in the election in November 28th.
That was Brenda Allison. Next up, here's my interview with David R. Hatt. David, tell us about yourself. What's your backstory?
Born and brought up in Charlotte County. I was born in Back Bay. I've lived in Back Bay and St. George all of my life. Worked between Beaver, Blacks, Back Bay, so been very involved with social groups and ATVing, motorcycling. Been on the board of directors for the New Brunswick ATV Federation for 15 years now. We manage basically a $2 million budget, so a little bit of experience in shuffling money around. I'm a fisherman. and love the area I live in and want to see it prosper.
Why are you running for council?
As I just said, I love the area, want to see it prosper. I think I can help. I have opinions, but I listen to other people's advice and their opinions, and then I'll form my final answer after as much input as possible. I'll state my case, but I'm willing to listen to everybody else that's on the committee, the board, the residents, whatever. So that's why I think I can put a variety of stuff together and come up with a common good answer. So,
in your opinion, what are some of the biggest issues facing Eastern Charlotte right now?
Stagnant growth is one. We need to, I've said it in one of my posts, stop trying to be Little St. Andrews, whatever. Somebody else grow on what we've got, run with our own assets and strong points. I say St. Andrews simply because we're here, but we don't need to try to copy what other people are doing. We need to take advantage of what we have and work with what we've got.
If you are elected, what are some of the steps you would take to make the community a better place and be a voice for Eastern Charlotte?
First thing, to be a better place, stop a lot of the duplication and doing stuff over and over. We're going to be one big group now, so we should be able to focus on bigger projects and get stuff done more expedient, not spending as much money on redoing the same thing over and over on a small basis. I'd like to see us concentrate on our shoreline, our lakes, our assets that we have, the stuff, drawing the tourist dollars, drawing people to spend money in our community. Because it's there, we just got to promote it and make it visible, viable, I guess, is the best answer.
What are some of the skills and qualities that you possess that you think would make you an effective counselor?
Like I said, I've been on the board of directors for the ATV Federation for 15 years. I've been president of our local ATV club for 18 years. Past president of the CAV unit, which we raised money for the veteran charities here in this area. Somewhere north of $80,000 we donated to local veterans charities in 4 years. So willing to listen, and I guess I have an overall, I don't know if like's the right word, but interest in politics in general. So I like to have a voice in what's going on for a change.
Final question. If you had $1 million grant to use any way you wanted in the community, what would you do with it and why?
First thing I would work on would be road repairs on some of the major connector highways. Like 172 is the connector, comes from Deer Island, Campobello through to St. George. There's a little section of that left that is horrible, and there's a lot of commerce that travels over that. So a little bit of road construction, and then do some work on the Day Adventure Center, places like that, to revitalize them and bring them back to draw in, like I say, the tourists, the outside dollars.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I appreciated getting to know you better.
And thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was David R. Hatt. Next up, here's my interview with Romy Hoof. Romy, tell us about yourself. What's your backstory?
Hey, Vicki, thanks. Well, I graduated from Funday High in 1980, went off to Mount Allison University, got a degree in chemistry, and then went to British Columbia for a whole bunch of years. Was a fashion designer, actually. I didn't get a chance to tell you that earlier. And got another degree in chemistry again, and then went to Calgary and worked for a while at the University of Calgary. And then I moved back here when my nephew, Gage Cook, was killed in that car accident. And I knew I was going to change careers. I wanted to work with people instead of just, numbers and stuff like that, because that's what I was doing a lot of. So I've gotten another degree just lately. In 2018, I finished my master's in adult education. Again, a research degree as well. So I understand how people work now better than I did when I was younger, when people were quite a black box to me. So I'm also, artistic, so I do like to make things and design things. I'm a grandmother. I have 6 grandchildren, 2 of them which live with me, and I have 4 children of my own. And my mom is the seamstress in Back Bay, which everybody knows. So And yeah, I've been in Charlotte County for 15 years now. I moved back 15 years ago, and I've been here and helping in the community as much as I can. The Filipino girls from Pacharal I helped quite a bit. I've been adult learning, so I've been a digital literacy instructor. I've helped a lot of people all over Charlotte County with their computer troubles. And just been sort of being a grandmother the last little while, and thought, you know what, I really want to give back to the community, and I think that I've got a lot to offer. I can read technical reports and spreadsheets and stuff. Like, I'm really good at that. I can debate really well. I have a lot of legal experience in court and stuff as well, so I think I offer a lot, and I love living here. It's the best place in the world.
So why are you running for council?
Well, I kept up with the green paper and the white paper and did all the reading that was available for the land use and that kind of thing, and all the things that are coming down the pipeline. And I thought we as a community really need a good, clear understanding of what the government is dumping on us, quote unquote, right? Because we'll be having to take care of our own infrastructure and roads and stuff. We'll have to be taking care of our own economic development. So to me, that meant that that requires a lot of understanding of how things work and what's going on. And so I figured, well, I have a lot of technical expertise, a lot of research background, a lot of ability to write reports, read reports. So I thought, you know what, I'm probably a really good person to have on their team. So.
What are some of the most important issues, in your opinion, facing Eastern Charlotte right now?
I think that Eastern Charlotte, the residents of Eastern Charlotte are very concerned that industry doesn't take over and the natural resources aren't exploited to the detriment of tourism and everyone's ability to fish and hunt and really enjoy the good outdoors. I think we all live in rural Eastern Charlotte because we like that lifestyle. We don't want it to be taken over with industry, and we're opposed to that. So I think making sure that any development is done very conscientiously and is done to the betterment of our community, so that the community can profit. If there are profits to be made, they don't just go into private hands, that profit is going to go back into the community. And I think that that's going to require really smart contract deals and that kind of thing. And of course, I think ecotourism is huge, and it's a huge growing trend, and we've got like the best spot in the world with the Bay of Fundy and everything else. And I'd like to be able to see us as a community, Eastern Charlotte, plus, you know, the rest of Charlotte County and stuff, really work together to figure out what can we do to get people to have things to do or activities to do here close to home, so that our local people can have lots of fun and have their Instagram moments and their photo ops and stuff here, and bring in people from the cities and stuff who are looking for something nice and rural and pleasant, and we have the most friendly people, right? And so I think that once we get to meet each other and know each other and have opportunities for that, it's going to be a better place for people like this, right? Because she's going to know her neighbors more, and I don't know, be more involved. Like, that's what I'm hoping anyway.
If you're elected, what are some of the steps you would take to make the community a better place? Yeah,
so the first thing that I've been working on already for a number of years, but I haven't launched it, is a network of neighbors system where, you know, I'm a counselor at large, but I want all the societies that are in Eastern Charlotte, like the ATV Society, the quilters people, the gardening people. I want to have a network built that we know who are all the people, what activities they're doing, as well as households. If you're part of a household or a small community that's isolated, like let's say Lee Settlement or Johnson Settlement, I'd like to see, and I want to try to get people to self-assemble into these micro communities and, you know, figure out who's a spokesperson. If not 1, 2, or 3 people, doesn't matter to me, but I want to be able to build that network physically, like through a website and a spreadsheet type of thing. I've already got it all built and ready to go, and I've had it for a long time because it's been a dream of mine for a long time. To have this sort of connection, and it's an interactive map where people can see who has what to offer in case of bartering. Like if we do have these economic downturns and depressions like they're forecasting everywhere, if there are natural disasters, which they're forecasting, you know, or just to build resilience within the neighborhoods, to everybody knows, you know, if I have extra eggs, here, I've got eggs, I've got pigs, you know, I can fix your diesel engine, you know, I'm really good at building or doing roofing, whatever, so that there's a real sense of I know my neighbors and I know who to ask for help, or I can offer help. So I'm really hoping to do that. And the other thing I'd like to do that I've also had in the works for quite a long time is potluck dinners and socials. And I would like to have a situation where there is a regular place where people know they can meet, eat, and talk about the issues that are going on in a friendly environment. So I've always found, like in Calgary, we did this in the community I lived in. It was very successful, attended by up to 100 and more people every time. And people talked, they handed over a microphone to everybody, and it just went from table to table. People said who they were, what they did, and if they had any concerns or wanted to express gratitude for anything like that in the neighborhood. And that seemed to be a great way to bring people together. And then next thing you knew, there was like Christmas parties at the park, and they were building little skating rinks, and kids from all over the neighborhood were playing together, and neighbors were sitting and drinking hot chocolate. And I thought, I'd like to see that, more of that for here, because I think that's a real possibility. And it made for a real sense of strength, that you knew that there was people you could count on, people you could ask for help, so you didn't feel so isolated and alone. So that would be something.
What are some of the qualities and skills you possess that you think would make you an effective counselor? And you have about 2.5 minutes left.
Okay, well, I'm a very good listener. I'm very analytical and observant, and I can process a lot of information at once, and even incoming from multiple places. My learners will tell you that for the digital literacy. I can listen here, 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 and keep track of stuff pretty good. I can present material really well, so I've got international awards for my ability to present information, complex information. I get along. I'm a team player. I'm approachable. I like people. I'm really sincerely interested in the community. I want it to be better, and I want people to feel that they have a chance to, you know, have a say in what goes on around here, because I think it's a community effort that should be a grassroots effort, taking care of our community, not a top-down, bottom-up.
Final question, if you had $1 million grant to do anything you wanted in the community, what would you do with it, and why? 1.5 minutes left.
Yeah, that was the toughest question, because I don't buy lottery tickets, and I'm not, you know, I am a risk taker, but I'm not much of a gambler. My first response would have been, can we put that in the trust fund and grow interest and use that? But, you know, I think you'd probably want to put out a call for proposals, right? You would probably say, okay, look, we've got this money. Let's start a think tank, and let's see what kind of proposals or ideas people have, and because maybe there's something I might not think of, or something that might be overlooked. So I probably would start with that and just sort of put it in trust fund, let it make a little bit of money, ask for proposals. I'm not keen on building a lot more infrastructure, because we already saw with McAdavick Place and everything else, they're expensive and they're hard to maintain, and they don't make money and they don't do anything. So probably into events. Right, so I think that if money put into events that would draw tourism and that would help neighbors come together, might be a better long-term payback, because then you are building resilience and you are building strength in your community. So that's probably about where my head would be going. But I would definitely put it out for ideas for people, because I like to see people put input in. I don't want to be the one to go, oh, I got all these great ideas. I'm not really that kind of person. I like to hear what other people have to say.
It was so great to meet you today, Romy, and
thanks,
you
Vicki.
as well, Aurora.
Yeah,
Thank you
this
for
is
coming
Aurora.
in. That was Romy Hoof. Next up, here's my interview with Bruce Jackson. Bruce, tell us about yourself. What is your backstory?
Well, first of all, before I start, I'm looking at my notes and putting them together for the story, and I see a kind of a common theme, and I'm going to touch on it, I guess, as I answer your various questions. But what makes a good counselor, and I think adapting to change is a big part of being a good counselor. But anyway, getting into my background, I've been a lifelong resident of Eastern Charlotte County. The last 8 years or so, my wife and I have lived at Utopia. Before that, I was lifelong at St. George. We've had cottages in Red Rock area, so I guess I can say I've lived the town and the LSD, you know, area. My employment years ago, I started first of all with Irving Pulp and Paper in the late 60s. I worked 2 years with Irving Pulp and Paper. I then moved on to working with the federal government based out of Blacks Harbor, and I spent 35 years there. And with the federal government, I had a variety of roles. I worked in the laboratory as regulatory, supervisory, management team positions, and upon retirement I was the area supervisor for southwestern New Brunswick for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And following retirement, I spent 10 years on the St. George Town Council as a counselor, and two of the terms were as deputy mayor. And I think through my life at different stages I get into volunteering. I was involved with various committees, and to name some, the St. George and Area Kinsmen, the St. George and Area Heritage Association, Charlotte County Archives here in St. Andrews, the 2010 Eastern Charlotte Flood Relief Committee, and currently I'm secretary of the Lake Utopia Preservation Association. And I think volunteer roles I found rewarding. I can find them also challenging at times, because there's so much to do, but yet there's so few resources and so few people to do it, and that's I guess the challenging part of it. And I think particularly of the flood of 2010 and being involved with the Eastern Charlotte Flood Relief Committee. You know, people had suffered so much and lost so much, but with Eastern Charlotte we pulled together as a group, and I think we helped solve a lot of their problems and fill a lot of their needs. So I guess in a nutshell, that's my background of the last several years. So.
Now, why are you running for council now?
Well, I think the quick answer is that my wife Carol and I have made Eastern Charlotte our forever home, and I want to give back to the community. I have a few other thoughts here. I've lived, worked, and enjoyed the life benefit of Eastern Charlotte has to offer, and whether it's been village or town or LSD area. And I think I understand the rewards and the challenges of living there. So, and through my life, I've experienced a lot of the challenges in life of youth, school years, work, finding a job, raising a family, building a home. So, and now I'm into the challenges of senior life in my senior years. So, and I feel my life experience is an asset in, working towards, a good council setting. Our new system of government, I think you've probably heard this, will present many challenges. A lot of the challenges are still emerging, and I want to help with that change. I want to help our community stay the great community it is, and go into the future. And I have my past council, employment, and volunteer experience, I think, will help me to, be a productive member of our new council.
In your opinion, what are some of the most important issues facing Eastern Charlotte right now?
Well, I noticed the words you picked up on the words right now, but issues change frequently, and I think council must stay current. And I have a couple of thoughts, how council should work on issues. Like the new council, I think, needs to have sessions initially to identify what are the issues and prioritize a plan to respond to them. And council has to be able to adapt and respond to changing priorities. And the changes in municipal government, which I mentioned previously, I think will present many new issues to resolve. The issues I see at present, and I have a list of several here, I think at the top of everybody's minds, you see recently in the media that, for example, the cost of heating oil, how high it's soared, and diesel. Well, the cost of almost everything, including taxes, has gone up. And how can we still deliver the quality of services which people need and, still deliver them at an affordable cost? Health care, access to doctors, nurses, ambulances, housing of all types, be it apartments, be it single units, be it, affordable housing. Policing, there's a lot of issues around policing. The drugs are concern in our community, theft, vandalism, police presence, the timeliness of police response. Skilled people, we need skilled people to fill our job vacancies in the community. One I'm quite familiar with, volunteerism, how can we recruit more volunteers to help, support the needed social services we have? The municipality can provide infrastructure or can provide resources, but it's hard to provide all the people, all the the volunteers we need. I think we got to look at improving the economy of how we deliver our services to our citizens. That's keeping with the rising cost part of it. And lastly, I think is something as affordable public transportation. There's many in our community, be it some of our new workers who have immigrated in, be it our seniors, don't have vehicles. They don't have a way of getting to doctor services or recreational or other public services. And people, even our citizens that have vehicles, gas is pretty steep, you know. Even with a vehicle, it's a challenge to get to some of these services. And I think that's our issues anyway.
That's a lot of issues that you've touched on. What are some of the key steps you'd take if elected to make the community a better place? You have about 3.5 minutes left to give you a time check.
Okay. I think first of all, I believe Eastern Charlotte is already a good place to live. And I think one of the key things, steps which could be taken, you need to have a council that works well together as a team, and that's the greatest first step I see of them all. With that respect, if I was on council, I would strive to be a good team member, promote working as a team, be available to both council and citizens, provide my input and critique and my reason why, and not grumbling behind the scenes, listen to the ideas of others, be willing to accept and promote the decisions of the team, do my homework, come prepared to participate, and lastly, be willing to put the time in, and there's a big time commitment to council.
Now you've touched on this quite significantly, but what are some of the qualities and skills that you possess that you think would make you an effective councillor?
Well, I think from my former employment I bring to it project management skills, budget control, problem solving, team building, and process improvement. And I believe working in a team environment where the input of others, both inside and out, is considered and valued. And I believe to be part of a team, you must have the time to dedicate. And I'm retired, I have that time, and good health. And I believe in continuously looking at how we may improve, you know. And quite often improvement is driven by change, which we're certainly going through now. And lastly, on that point, I believe in making best use of available resources and working with our means, you know. Is an item really needed? Use public input, facts and figures versus impromptu decisions.
And finally, if you had $1 million grant to use any way you wanted in your community, what would you do with it and why? You have 1.5 minutes left.
It should have really been a $10 million question. $1 million doesn't go very far today. I think of a recent project on the Red Rock Road or Route 785, which cost $250,000. So I think you've got to look at some things, and council's got to plan in advance and be ready for grants. And does council have the funds available for our portion? Is the opportunity important? There's a way to work it out. We should not neglect another issue to take advantage of these funds. And I guess my answer, to put it in a nutshell, is I would put it in the form of seed money and to support some of the other priorities I see, like housing, volunteer support, or affordable public transportation. And in closing, I've been posting a series on Facebook which will give further detail on my thoughts if people like to look. And Vicki, I'd like to express my thanks to you and CHCO-TV for being here today.
Well, thank you so much, Bruce, for sitting down with me. I appreciate it. You covered it all in 10 minutes exactly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was Bruce Jackson. Now here's my interview with Lisa McKay. Lisa, tell us about yourself. What's your backstory?
So my backstory is Vicki. I was born to Garnet Linda Matheson in Back Bay. My dad was a contractor, and I spent 18 years of my life in Back Bay, worked in the sardine plant there and grew up. At 18, I moved out and moved to Penfield, where I spent another 18 years. And then I moved to St. George, and I've been in St. George for the past 19 years. I run a farm in St. George called Matheson Farms. My dad started it years ago, and after he passed away, I decided to keep it going. So we have lots of horses and cows and chickens, and I'm also a painter contractor. So I do drywall and mudding and that sort of thing. So I try to keep myself very busy. So yeah, that's my backstory. So
why are you now running for council?
Why am I running for council? I want to make a difference. I desire to make a difference. Whether I will make a difference or not, only time will tell. But I believe that things need to change. And so that's why I'm running for council.
In your opinion, what are some of the most important issues facing Eastern Charlotte right now?
I believe right now in this day and age, with the rising costs of everything, fuel and food and whatever, my big concern is for the elderly and how they're going to make it. Some of them are living on just a pension check, and they live alone. They still have a vehicle because a lot of them are still able to drive. And a lot of people are, not just the elderly, but a lot of families are absolutely skipping a meal just to make ends meet. So for me, that is a big one. Another one is our youth. The youth is our future. And with the rising events of crime and drugs, I believe youth needs something, because if they're not occupied, they will get into mischief, and a lot of youth won't come back from that. So those are two of the big things. Crime. People need to feel that when they go to bed at night, they're safe. And there's been a lot of break-ins, there's been a lot of things stolen, and I believe policing is a huge issue. And the one other thing, this is not least of all the things, but it's just one more thing: housing. There's a housing crisis. There's not a land crisis. There's lots of land for sale, but there is a housing crisis, affordable housing. And young people growing up, millennials and Gen Zs, what are they going to do? They want to be able to have a home, they want to be able to have the car, they want to be able to have, and there has to be affordable housing.
If you are elected, what are some steps you would take to make the community a better place and to be a voice for Eastern Charlotte?
Well, I'm all about helping your neighbor. I believe in helping your neighbor. And I think if more people come together and did that, you would see Eastern Charlotte thrive. I know people are busy and they have their busy schedules and whatever. I have a busy schedule. Yeah, I think if people come together, but what steps I would actually take, I think there needs to be maybe more community outreach, and yeah, I guess that's just where I would be with that. I think there would be a lot more community outreach and helping others, and really speaking up for those who can't be heard.
What qualities or skills do you possess that you think would make you an effective counselor?
I think the main ones would be honesty and integrity. Character is extremely important to me. And time will tell somebody's character. When somebody's backed up against the wall, you will see what they're made of. And I believe those are my biggest assets moving forward in this election, is honesty, transparency. I pride myself in taking responsibility for my actions, and whatever those actions are. I mean, I'm not above anything. I'm human, I'm fallible. But when I do fail, I take responsibility for that, and apologize to those who need to be apologized to.
My last question is the fun one. If you had $1 million grant to do anything you wanted in the community, what would you do with it and why?
So I guess if it was just an extra $1 million floating around after everything else was done, I would want to do something. Well, first, I guess I would want to do something for youth. Like I said, I believe youth need a place. They need an outlet. They need a place to burn off energy. They need a place where they can get together and not feel judged, or condemned. You know, that would be a big thing for me. Free of drugs, free of, you know, being hurt or, you know, whatever. So that would be a big thing for me. And also the seniors. I mean, the seniors need, they need something. They have worked in Eastern Charlotte most of their lives. They have contributed to Eastern Charlotte. They have paid tax dollars to Eastern Charlotte. They have shopped in Eastern Charlotte. They've raised their families in Eastern Charlotte. And now they're faced with, do I put food on the table or do I pay my hydro bill? Do I go cold? Do I go hungry? And so those are two of the biggest issues, and those are two things that I would want to do something with that $1 million.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come in today.
Thank you so much, Vicki.
It was great to get to know you better.
It was wonderful to get to know you as well.
That was Lisa McKay. Your last candidate for Councillor at Large is Dale E. Shaw. Dale, tell us about yourself. What's your backstory?
Well, my name's Dale Shaw, and I'm from the community. I've lived here my whole life. I grew up here, was raised here. Played sports here, went to school here. I met my wife Shannon here. We bought our first home in Penfield, started our family with our son Dale IV, and we both have careers with cooks here. So I mean, we have a vested interest in our community at large and positive outcomes for it, which kind of plays into, I think, one of your next questions is why am I running for the municipal election, and that starts with a little over a year ago. When I first found out about the amalgamation, pending amalgamation, I asked around my family and friends and community members and to see if anybody knew anything about it, and surprisingly, not too many people knew anything about the amalgamation or, you know, who in our community had influence over it. And at that time, there was a municipal election for the Penfield LSD, so I run and I did get elected. Shortly after being elected on the Penfield LSD, I come to find out that the council really didn't have much influence over the process, and a lot of the concerns that, you know, I had and members of my family and the community had really were in the hands of the new council, which kind of is why I'm running for the new council, just to make sure that you know, the interests of Penfield, not just Penfield, but all the communities being amalgamated to one are being sought after, and that they're being heard and listened to. And so that's why I chose to run, is to make sure that, you know, we're not just looked at as a larger tax base to be taken advantage of by a larger municipality being incorporated as well, that we need to listen to all the voices from everybody within the community and make sure that the policies and changes to any policies or proposed policies accurately and articulately reflect the rich history and the people within the communities being amalgamated into one. So that's kind of why I put my name forward and continue to run for the council.
I'll jump ahead then to the third question, since you
Kind of
answered 1 and 2 altogether.
Yeah, so.
In your opinion, what are some of the most important issues facing Eastern Charlotte right now?
Right now, I think the biggest issue is surviving this amalgamation and making sure that we come out ahead and not behind. So I think that's one of the main issues that the council needs to keep in mind and make sure that, you know, through the whole process that, you know, that we come out ahead and that everybody's interests are being sought after. And that's one of the main issues I can see. Every locality being amalgamated has their own issues within, and they all need to be addressed and looked at, and I think the new council needs to work together and hear out the problems that everybody has. I know you know, the residents of Blacks and Beaver would certainly say that the water quality issues for them is an issue, and I think that's something that should be looked at. Also policing, you know, with the economy the way it is, there's a lot more theft and break-ins and crime locally, so I think we definitely need to look into, you know, what we can do for our community policing wise and how we can make sure that, you know, residents are safe, their property's safe, and they don't feel the need to take the law into their own hands. As you see in the newspaper more often, that, you know, community members are being arrested for protecting their own property, and I don't think that is, you know, acceptable. I think that we need to work with law enforcement within our community and make sure that there's adequate protection for everybody within. And so I think, you know, those are some issues that are, you know, affecting our area that need to be addressed. I think there's some issues with, you know, ambulance coverage. I see people complaining online and, you know, in person about, you know, certain issues pertaining to that. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed as well. So those are some of the main issues that I think that kind of are plaguing our community. And I mean, we have a lot of stagnating economic and urban developments, and I think you know, this amalgamation isn't all doom and gloom. There is, you know, an opportunity for us to capitalize on our rich history with, instead of just advertising for tourism for Blacks or St. George, we can take everything together and really capitalize on that, as well as, where was I going with that? Like stagnating economic and urban developments. We have a lot of issues with boundaries and land use planning and that and resource management that could be that the new council has the ability to kind of get through some of that red tape and help foster an environment conducive to economic and urban development, which I think will help aid our housing crisis, which is a big issue in our community. And I think you know, if our new council works together to work out some of the nuanced issues within the communities and sort out you know, some of the issues with policing and water and things like that, that it'll help foster an environment for growth for our community.
Now, you've already touched a little bit on this question too. If you are elected, what are some of the steps you would take to make the community a better place and to be a voice for Eastern Charlotte?
I think the main thing is maintaining the status quo, not to jump ahead of ourselves, and to make sure that any proposed changes or actual changes are adequately vetted to make sure that they're properly implemented and that everybody's thoughts and are taken into consideration, and that we move forward in an incremental pace, that everything's looked at and properly addressed.
What are some of the qualities or skills that you possess that you think would make you an effective counselor?
Well, I don't really stir away from anything impeding me. So I mean, if or any hardships, I kind of work over them the best I can. I started, for example, I worked here my whole life. I lived here my whole life. I started working for Cooks, washing tote boxes, and you know, I've thrived in my environment, work environment. I moved from a box washer to a production supervisor, and now I manage a warehouse. I also a forklift safety instructor for the company, and I now do feed logistics for our NB mainland operations. So I think my ability to take on a challenge head on and see that it's seen through will help aid our new council with working together and getting some of these changes put through and working for our community at large.
Now, final question, and it's a fun one. If you had $1 million grant to do anything you wanted in the community, what would you do with it and why?
Well, without sitting with the council and hearing from everybody from all the arms of our community on the surface, I think maintaining and upgrading some of our municipal infrastructure now to making sure that the services that we are providing are done, you know, are the best services that we can provide, making sure that, for example, like Blacks and Beaver they can have clean or safe drinking water. Not that it's not clean or safe, but I mean, you always, when I lived in Blacks, you couldn't wash your whites without them coming out yellow because of the certain water issues. So I think investing in municipal infrastructure that supports not just economic growth, but supports residents and residential growth, I think would be a good start. But beyond that, I think the council would have to, I think it would be good for the council to sit down and actually prioritize, you know, the needs of all the communities that are being amalgamated. But yeah, that's my answer, I guess.
Thank you so much, Dale. It was so great to get to know you better. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That was Dale E. Shaw, and those were your 6 candidates for Councillor at Large for Eastern Charlotte. Voters will elect 2 of the 6 candidates to be councillors at large. Next up, we'll move into the candidates for Eastern Charlotte wards. Terry Lee has been acclaimed as councillor of Ward 1, so we'll move right to Ward 2, where your first candidate, alphabetically, is Logan Cook. Logan, tell us about yourself. What's your backstory?
Okay, so I'm 21, so I'm fairly young when I feel elected politics. I'm a 4th year political science student at UNBSJ. I'm an executive on a politics society along with a couple of my friends, and I host a political podcast called The Manifesto.
Why are you running for council?
I'm running for council because I feel like we need more young people in elected politics. I applaud the council for what they have done, both in St. George, Blacksburg, and the LSDs, but we need change. This is a new thing for all of us. Amalgamation is a big deal. People like it, people don't like it, but we have to live with it, and we need someone on council who will fight for Eastern Charlotte. And we do need change, and I hope that me running for elected politics will show other young people that we can run and that we can be the change that is needed in our communities.
In your opinion, what are some of the biggest issues facing Eastern Charlotte right now?
For me, the biggest issue is housing. The Eastern Charlotte's in a housing crisis. The whole country's in a housing crisis. Since COVID, the price of houses has gone up, the price of rents has gone up, and the amount of rents has gone down. I feel that the new council needs to work with the provincial government and the federal government and the private developers to secure land, build housing, and build affordable housing for people who cannot afford these high $1,000 a month rents for one bedroom, one bathroom. Other issues I think that we have is mental health. A lot of people are suffering from mental health and they don't have access to the resources that they need. If you need help for mental health, you have to go to St. John or a bigger city. But we need to have a clinic here in Eastern Charlotte, especially somewhere central like St. George, where people can go in and they can get help from like therapists and psychiatrists, get the help that they need, and we need it in our communities. Other issues that we have is people don't have access to high-speed internet. Like, I live in a rural community. We didn't have high-speed internet until we got Starlink. I know so many people who they don't have access to good internet. How can you? Internet is a human right. You need internet to really to function in the modern society. Another issue is infrastructure. Our roads are in poor shape. There's potholes everywhere. They repave it every year, but it's just patchwork. So we need to have good roads. And there's just problems facing Eastern Charlotte that I think that this council can work on and can fix together.
Now, if you are elected, I know you've addressed some of this already in some of your past answers, but what are some other key steps you would take to make the community a better place?
I think we need to be transparent in our government. People have a distrust of government because they don't know what's happening and people don't talk about what's going on. I think that our council, and I would tell my constituents and the people of Eastern Charlotte what are we voting on and what is happening behind closed doors. I will stick to the platform that I had, that better housing, more access to mental health help, better high-speed internet, better infrastructure, I want Eastern Charlotte to thrive and succeed. I want young people like me, to see that they have a future in Eastern Charlotte, and that we can stay here and build our lives like our parents and our grandparents before us have.
Now, you've addressed some of this already, but what are some of the qualities you have that you believe will make you an effective counselor?
As I said before, I'm a fourth-year political science student, so I know how government works. I know the different levels of government, what they have access over. I think that as a young person, I could bridge that age divide between the older people who are predominantly on current town councils and the younger people who make up an ever-growing population. I know that each council from the different wards in our lives, they'll have their different opinions, different politics, and different policies, but we do need to work together. And I feel like that I can help us bring our great ideas together and to help Eastern Charlotte succeed into the future.
Now, the last question is a more fun one. If you had $1 million grant to do whatever you wanted in Eastern Charlotte, what would you do with it and why?
I would put it towards low-income housing. $1 million, well, it would not build the housing that we need. It would put a big dent into securing the land, designing the buildings, and getting shovels in the ground for the housing that is so desperately needed in our community.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Logan.
Thank you.
It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
That was Logan Cook. Your second and final candidate for Ward 2, Michael Thompson, did not respond to our request for an interview. Next up are the candidates for Ward 3. Starting alphabetically, here is my interview with Alexa Dedorakis. Alexa, tell us about yourself. What's your backstory?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in St. George. I've always had a passion for community involvement. I've volunteered for several nonprofits. I currently sit on 2 boards, the Funny Community Foundation and Charlotte County Adult Learning. While my academic background is in psychology, I currently have a big passion for food sovereignty and food security and the roles that they play in making a community happy and healthy. I also help manage my family's business, which is a nursery and farm located in St. George, and I'm currently a counselor at the town of St. George.
So why are you running for council again?
So there are 2 reasons why. One is that with the amalgamation, there are a lot of unknowns, and I am concerned about the next step, and I want to advocate those concerns on behalf of the people in my ward, and protect the interests of St. George. Secondly, I want people to know what's going on. I want to ensure that the new council functions in an open and transparent way. And I want people to know what service they're going to get and how much those services are going to cost.
In your opinion, what are some of the biggest issues facing Eastern Charlotte right now, and what would you do about them? So,
Vicki, it really depends on who you speak to. For some people, they're concerned about crime because crime rates have gone up. For others, they are concerned about the lack of doctors in the area because we don't have a ton of doctors. I know people across all the wards are really concerned about an increase in their taxes. And I think overwhelmingly, people are concerned about making ends meet, because the reality is everything has gone up, whether it's food, gas, power rates. So I think that the new council really needs to be mindful of the financial realities that people are facing right now.
Mm-hmm. If you are reelected, what steps would you take to make the community a better place?
I think number one, I think the first thing, and it's the most basic thing, is engagement. So that's either through meetings or through online forums, getting people to know what on earth is going on, communicate with them. I know through canvassing, a lot of people don't even know that this amalgamation is going on. A lot of people don't even know there's even an election going on, so that's really concerning. So we need to know what people want, what they don't want, and what they expect from this amalgamation.
What qualities and skills do you possess that you think make you an effective counselor?
Yeah, so I would say that I offer a young voice. I have a lot of experience in leadership positions. I used to be the vice president of my university's Women's Center. I have an experience of being on town council. I understand the operations of the town, and I have that ability to engage with people outside of my bubble. I think what's also really important is that I have, while my academic background is in social issues, I have been involved in business. And so I think I have a balanced perspective where I can see both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm. Now, final question. If you had $1 million grant to use any way you wanted in your community, what would you do with it and why?
I think there are 2 areas of concern. One, I would look at the piece of infrastructure most neglected in our community, and it would be water, roads, sewage, sidewalks, and allocate those funds towards that. Another thing to consider is, like I mentioned before, with the rising costs of everything and how it's so challenging for people to just exist, and we're seeing an increase in the number of people that are using the food bank and that are more and more food insecure. I would allocate a portion of those funds to the food bank to help those in need.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alexa. It was great to get to know you better.
Thank you so much, Vicki.
That was Alexa Dedorakis. Next up, here's my interview with Joan Makrowski. Joan, tell us about yourself. What's your backstory?
So my name is Joan Makrowski, and I'm the Executive Director of the Charlotte County Multicultural Association in St. George. I grew up rurally in Ontario, and I seriously thought about becoming a police officer before a skiing accident actually destroyed that dream. And then I fell into ESL language teaching, which is English as a second language. So then I went off to Japan, and that's really where my career started. After that, I moved to St. George about 5 years ago, almost to the day now, actually. And I came here on vacation. I realized this was really the place that I wanted to spend the rest of my life. And it wasn't until I got here that I realized this is what being part of a community was. In all of the other places that I lived, you barely knew your neighbors. And here in St. George, you know your neighbors, you know your friends, you have great support from the community, and that's pretty much the core of who I am and what I do.
Why are you running for council?
So it was not my idea to run. It was actually suggested to me by one of my friends, and I actually went and asked the person why. Like, why should I run? Like, what is it about me? More specifically, what qualities do I possess that would be right for council? So the person said that I'm able to see situations from multiple lenses, and they're right. So that is something that I can do. Then I started the process of what could I actually offer the constituents of Eastern Charlotte. And what I offer is my career experience. So my experience is in transition, working collaboratively with stakeholders, having passion for the community and keep things moving forward. I want to see St. George as a place that grows. I keep on hearing from so many people that, you know, Eastern Charlotte used to have this and used to have that, and it was a bustling community. And that's really what I want to see again for St. George and for the people of St. George and of Eastern Charlotte as a whole.
You've already touched on some of this, but in your opinion, what are some of the most important issues facing Eastern Charlotte right now?
So there are the obvious issues that pretty much have been spoken about for years now. Lack of housing, lack of transportation, lack of recreation, needs for daycares, senior accessibility and health. And then the newest issue would actually be municipal reform. So communities are being told it will become one area when at this point they have been self-identifying communities. So that is going to be a huge shift. At this point, people have been told that their taxes won't go up, and now they're being told that their taxes will go up. So it's going to take a strong council working together to be able to bring forward clarity, a consistent message, and working through all the pain points of the municipal election.
If you are elected, what are some key things you would do to make the community a better place?
So that one I have quite a bit on. So first, I would recommend having a forum to allow people to air their grievances. There's been a lot of misinformation out there. There's been a lot of people need to have an outlet in order to move forward. Right now it kind of feels like it's a pot ready to kind of bubble up and boil, and we need to kind of defuse that so that council can actually move forward. Constituents' health and safety should take a priority. That's first and foremost. Housing is an obvious pain point, and it is currently being addressed in so many areas of Eastern Charlotte, and taking information from other areas where they've been able to work on the housing situation also needs to be considered. Next is transportation. We have jobs in the area, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have a means to get to jobs. So that needs to be considered. Daycare and affordable daycare. So in Eastern Charlotte, there are currently 0 registered daycares in the area, which greatly affects the ability of parents and especially single parents. We need to market the area in order to bring land developers and businesses into the area. The more people that we have coming, the more services that we need. Recreation. There is very limited recreation for everybody in the area, including youth and seniors and young children. Volunteer opportunities for all ages. Youth need volunteer experience to put on their resumes, to put on their applications. It's something that is necessary in this day and age. And as a person who came into this area, I didn't know where I could volunteer. And it took me a while getting into the community because it is such a tight-knit community, but it's a community that volunteers. And had I had that opportunity, I would have been able to move myself forward within the community faster. Work with RSC to reduce duplication in the area. I think that's actually one of the municipal mandates going forward for municipal reform. And then work on a strategic plan for the area so that when funding does become available, we can just apply for it as opposed to trying to catch up and doing everything that's needed for funding.
What are some of the, did I cut you off?
No,
Okay.
no.
What are some of the qualities and skills that you possess that you think would make you an effective counselor?
So I look at any project and look at it very critically to see whether, first and foremost, is it a possibility? I gather information and I talk to people who have more experience than I do about it. And I have to fully understand the project before committing. I work collaboratively with stakeholders in the area, and I work with them very, very well. You can't get anything off the ground alone. You have to be working together. I'm rational and logical. First, you have to build a team. You have to develop a vision, gather information, map the information, then establish the goals, objectives, and policies. So without these steps, and they are time consuming, but without these steps, it can mean the difference from getting government funding and not getting government funding. And this goes back to my previous point about working collaboratively with everybody. And one thing that's important is that council may disagree on issues, but that disagreement can actually produce better results and be more productive. I have experience working in times of transition and change. So all of my career since I was 22 years old has been working in times of transition. When I lived abroad, I had a job for 3 months, and then they suggested me for a leadership role, which I denied because I was there for 3 months. I worked in insurance, so I understand the liability aspects of things. Then I transitioned back into teaching, and I was asked to take a leadership role there again. It was suggested that I go to Vancouver, and I built a school ground up. It had the infrastructure, but it was being built ground up. Then I transitioned to Calgary, and again, going through transition, change, some of it very difficult. So what I offer, again, is flexibility, adaptability, communication to prepare people for what's to come. And then lastly that I had on here was that I'm not a politician. What you see is what you get. I'm not looking to be a politician. I'm looking to help the community as a whole and help during municipal reform.
And finally, last question, less than 2 minutes left. If you had $1 million grant to do anything you wanted in the community, what would you do with it and why?
So I actually have two answers to this. The first one being the fully pragmatic answer. Anything that would impact health, safety, or ability to do your job. So if there's any services, if there's a new plow that's needed, that would affect people being able to go to work. And we're still in a pandemic. We don't need another reason why we can't go to work. If there's something needed for the fire station or plows or garbage disposal, something that would affect the actual health and well-being of the Eastern Charlotte area. The second one would be if I had $1 million and I didn't have to share it with council in any way, shape, or form, I would ask for a call of proposal from the constituents so that they can actually drive the change. So with $1 million, it's actually not a lot of money, and it might be able to fund a couple of projects, but by the onus being on the people themselves, they're going to get it done. They're going to have the passion to drive it forward, and that's what I want to see, is the community coming back together and working together. I mean, St. George's slogan is community strong, and amalgamation with Eastern Charlotte can just make it stronger.
All right. Thank you so much, Joan. It was a pleasure to get to know you better.
Thank you so much, Vicki.
That was Joan Makrowski. Your third and final candidate for Ward 3 is Sam Rubin. Sam, tell us about yourself. What's your backstory?
Well, I'm a resident of St. George. I've lived there my entire lifetime. And I come from a family of 6 siblings. And my mother and father was Nate and Pete Rubin. Most people would know them as. And I lived in the town and seen quite a lot of growth in my lifetime. Living next to the fire hall, the police station, the courthouse, the works department. Sometimes it got quite interesting if you seen a patron coming into the night that had to take residence in the local jail, which still exists today in that building, I've been told by the owner. He didn't renovate, he kept that in there as part of the historical value. You know, I'm married, 2 kids, 2 older children at this point, which allows me lots of time to take part in council or the activities that take place in the town, which I've enjoyed over this last 16, 18 months. You know, going forward, I let my name stand, you know, as I found more interest as things go along, the budgeting process and how things evolve as you move along. You know, and I took part in the fire department as seeing the trucks going little when I was young and got older. But when the second child came along, I had 2 jobs, and one was weekends and nights, and that's when all the training started to take place, so something had to give. It didn't leave a whole lot of personal time to do anything. You know, that's something I enjoyed, you know, but time just didn't allow it. And recently, since I've retired in 2017, I was lucky. I was able to work my entire lifetime in the town. I found employment, and that made it good. And I retired, and there was kind of a little bit of a void. So I said, well, 18 months ago, so I'm going to run for council just for the heck. And here we are today. I got voted in, and it's been quite an eye-opening experience for sure. I recently, about a year ago, entered into the food bank, give them a little hand there once a week, just to kill the time. And, you know, that's about it at this point.
Why are you running for council this time around?
Well, this time around, I felt it was important to reoffer for the simple fact that I think people should have a choice of a number of people to vote, and I applaud the people that are applying for the position all over Eastern Charlotte County, the ones that did take the time to, and it's quite a valuable thing that has to be done. It's going to be a change for sure this next time around. You know, it's with the LSDs and the village and the town coming together, there's going to be some pretty big challenges. You know, and like I say, I've got the time to do it, and I'm more than willing to do so.
In your opinion, what are some of the most important issues facing Eastern Charlotte right now?
Housing's always an important issue within the communities to provide workers for the workforce of someplace to stay. It's not easy to do. We've tried several things, and you just can't seem to get things rolling. For instance, the price of material has gone so high during this COVID session, and now the interest rates are just crawling quite rapidly, and most developers are just standing back. They're not in the position, or don't want to be in that position, and I don't blame them. You know, it costs a lot more to do everything, and the return time takes so much longer to get the money back. And the point of getting the message out to the residents of Eastern Charlotte, I feel the government's done a poor job. You know, there's still people I've talked to just recently that aren't aware there's an election taking place and why. And even the 2 wards, like Ward 3 St. George is proper, Ward 1 is just outside, but it's still in St. George. You know, it's a little bit confusing of why that's like that, and the gains of why it's taking place. It's not as straightforward as people might think.
If you're elected, what are some of the steps you would take to make Eastern Charlotte a better place and to be a voice for Eastern Charlotte?
Listen to the people best you can, but the most important takeaway of this whole thing is working with others. You've got to work with others to move forward, because everybody's going to share the bill as they move forward to make this decision. You know, it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a while, and the benefits are going to be a while before you see what's going to happen.
And on that note, what are some of the qualities and skills that you possess that you think would make you an effective counselor?
I've got the time. And I mean, some people run for council thinking they're going to go once a month to a meeting, and it takes a lot more than one meeting. I've been to several meetings in a week because I am retired, you know, and it's a challenge on some issues when you're looking at the finances, how they are just in the way St. George is, but now the whole Eastern Charlotte is going to be even a bigger challenge to provide the services that are required and to keep the services that we have going forward.
Final question, Sam. If you had $1 million in a grant to do anything you wanted in the community, what would you do with it and why?
Oh, $1 million. The first place I would give like $50,000 to the food bank, because that services all of Eastern Charlotte. The second thing would be a $200,000 pool that would have 2 purposes: to help seniors provide housing, our heating services, and every maybe case of food, you know, if they qualify. Another part of that session would be any person that wanted to develop a residential home may see a gratuity, maybe a fund being used for water and sewage services for maybe 1 year after they build it, or a few dollars towards their tax bill, an incentive for them to come. There's incentives for developers, but there's not incentives for regional, you know, for people in the residential use. They're always on their own. So I think that'd be a couple of good areas. And the other $750,000 would be cost-shared projects of federal, provincial, and municipal or Eastern Charlotte, which could triple the amount of funds at a 30% take. You know, that could be recreation, that could be housing, it could be, you know, there's quite a few different places, water, sewage, it could be roads, it could be sidewalks. You know, that money is very expensive to do those projects, and the best bang for your buck would be to try to enter in some of those agreements to do those for the best of your Eastern Charlotte.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come in today, Sam. I appreciate it.
Well, I certainly appreciate the opportunity, and CHCO, we certainly thank you for allowing this time to air out to the people.
That was Sam Rubin, and those were your 3 candidates for Ward 3. Wards 4, 5, and 6 have all been acclaimed, with Adam R. Hatt, your councillor for Ward 4, William McQuarrie as your councillor for Ward 5, and Daryl E. Tidd as your councillor for Ward 6. John Craig has also been acclaimed as Mayor of Eastern Charlotte. Keep in mind, if the councillor for your ward has been acclaimed, you can still vote for the 2 councillor-at-large positions. Now be sure to do your part and vote on November 28th. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching NB Votes on CHCO.